Kicking off our list at number 10 is Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde, as we know her, is known for her ability to phase herself and others through solid matter. She also has the ability on Earth 1610, but in this universe she discovered she can also minimize the negative space around her atoms, becoming super dense and granting herself extra dimensional mass, giving her enough strength to smash through concrete and metal and punch Spider-Man through the air, making her as hard as a diamond and able to withstand attacks from the Phoenix, and even make herself weigh 90 tons at peak mass. But that's as well as her phasing ability, which can allow her to walk on air and water. And that's before her exposure to Giant Man serum to fight Galactus that leveled her up even more, allowing her to increase in her size and gain a healing factor. Definitely one of my favorite Ultimate X-Men, and not just because of her romance with Peter Parker, it's because she's unstoppable. And at number 9, Wolverine. Okay, so for the character of Wolverine in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, he doesn't really measure up to his 616 Earth counterpart in a few ways. But despite that, it is hard not to admit that he's still quite the powerful character. His healing factor is a bit different than his Prime version and is called a survival factor. It essentially means he can survive being torn in half, departed from his head, and even blown up by a nuclear bomb. This version can also detect lies and still has his adamantium skeleton. The only issue is that in this universe the adamantium is not as strong and durable as normal Wolverine. Wolverine was also actually the first real mutant in the world, with the chemical that activated his X gene being taken, synthesized, and causing the emergence of other mutants. Logan himself was trained by Weapon X as an emotionless assassin, but when the Brotherhood hired him to take out Xavier, he proves he is more than just muscle, overcoming his brainwashing and joining the X-Men. Although, it may have just also been because he fell in love with the teenage Jean Grey. He does meet a sticky end at the hands of Magneto, but up until that point, he is pretty nigh unstoppable. Number 8. Thor. Thor in the Ultimate Universe just kicks off to a really great start. Thorleif Goldman is given to us as a man whose sanity is completely in question. The European government has been trying to create their own super soldier program, but instead of creating a serum, they opted to create a harness and a belt that would augment someone's strength and speed and invulnerability, plus eventually a hammer that lets its user manipulate the weather. Thorleif here was chosen as the best subject to test out the new tech, only he started to believe that he was actually the god of thunder, Thor, reborn in a human body. It's such a cool way to see this character interpreted, but it also makes it so much more satisfying when he eventually proves himself to be completely sane. Using the human technology and his thousands of years of experience as Thor, he becomes a celebrity and a hero. Some refer to him as a Boy Scout, always aiming for the betterment of humanity, and refusing to throw in with the industrial complex of Nick Fury's Ultimates. It took the US president doubling the foreign aid budget in order for Thor to finally agree to join the Ultimates, and he did so in spectacular fashion, bringing the team's fight with the Hulk to a decisive end. He then carries on as one of the strongest members of the Ultimates and redeems himself as a true god among men. Number 7. Rick Jones. In the regular 616 universe, Rick Jones is actually around quite a bit for just a regular dude. For example, he was the teenager who was just hanging out at the Gamma Bomb test site, and saving him was the whole reason that Bruce Banner was doused in gamma radiation and became the Hulk in the first place. Rick was also the alter ego of Mar-Vell of the Kree, smacking together his negabands in order to transform into the hero. He also eventually became another gamma mutate named A-Bomb, but in the Ultimate Universe, Rick's story didn't really start until around the time of Ultimatum. He doesn't have much of an explained history. Instead, not too long before Ultimatum happened, he was chosen by the Watcher to become the hero known as Nova and eventually Captain Marvel. With that, he gained some pretty insanely powerful powers, teleporting himself and others across galactic distances and even into other dimensions, self-sustained flight both on the planet and throughout space, projecting powerful blasts of energy, powerful enough to harm Galactus, and a form of cosmic awareness. He also doesn't have to deal with the multiple personality issues of his 616 self, which probably adds to his unstoppable nature in the Ultimate Universe. Coming in at number 6 is Iron Man. The Tony Stark of the Ultimate Universe is pretty similar to his main Earth counterpart, only he's quite a bit more fun, less upsetting, and he eventually finds himself infused with a power that allowed him to physically and mentally interact with pretty much any computer ever. And that's a pretty good ability for someone who flies around in a technological suit of armor. The Antonio Stark of Earth 1610, or the Ultimate Universe, has basically become part man and part machine, being able to project his mind into computers and androids, allowing him to be nigh unkillable. Proven when the Master seemingly brought his end, but he became a non-physical entity which could manifest itself via computer systems. When actually physically inhabiting an Iron Man armor, he gains the usual abilities plus force fields and cloaking, but he's also got nanites in his bloodstream that he uses to control his suits, as well as open locks, defuse bombs, and interact with all forms of tech. This Ultimate Universe Iron Man is one of the most powerful versions of the character in the multiverse. Number 5. Reed Richards. Okay, so in the Ultimate Universe, Reed Richards was a brilliant scientist and leader of the Fantastic Four, as he is in the 616 continuity as well. But we do have to acknowledge something. This Reed does not stay a superhero for very long. In fact, he becomes one of the greatest villains in the Marvel multiverse. When Magneto unleashed the ultimatum wave on New York, his son passed away, and Sue Storm rejected his marriage proposal, Reed started to go a little bonkers. He blew up his family home along with his parents and faked his own de-lifing. He then planned attacks on some major buildings and Peter Parker's home. Eventually, becoming one of the most sinister villains in the Ultimate Universe, the heroes found him, beat him up, and Johnny Storm disfigured him. And then they left him floating in the negative zone. Reed then decided that maybe, you know what, this Earth kinda sucks. So he elongated his brain, spent 1,000 years in the distant future creating genetic superhumans, and started calling himself the Maker. Reed returned to Earth and set out on a twisted quest to make the world perfect, quote unquote. He took out all the Asgardians in an attempt to understand Thor's power and used antimatter to attack Washington. The Maker went on to do a lot of incredibly twisted stuff, fighting the heroes of his own Earth, but eventually the heroes of Earth 616 as well, after the destruction of his own universe. Number 4. Captain America. In the Ultimate Universe, things are a bit more grounded, as some would say. This basically means that things are gritty and Captain America is kind of a bit of a jerk. He's a nationalist, he kinda hates on France sometimes, he will bend the rules to get the job done, he's got all the ideological traits you'd expect out of a World War II era white male, and he wasn't even the first successful candidate for the super soldier serum. Here, that honor fell on Nick Fury himself. But speaking of the serum, this version of Captain America, while also being a bit of a jerk, is actually superhuman, as opposed to being just a peak level human being like his 616 counterpart. This power boost mixed with the fact that he is very willing to cheat and bend the rules to get the job done means he is a powerful character and should be as feared as he is respected. Maybe he isn't better in terms of morals or being a great guy, but he's what a real Captain America would probably be like in my cynical brain, and in terms of sheer strength and power, he is truly unstoppable and the best leader the Ultimates could really ask for. Number 3. Miles Morales. Miles Morales, like the Maker, is one of a few characters that came out of the Ultimate Universe that were so popular that they managed to stick around even after the destruction of that universe. Miles is the second Spider-Man of the Ultimate Universe, taking up the mantle after the passing of Peter Parker. He has essentially all the same abilities as Spider-Man himself, but then he has some that are wholly his own, and they're actually really kinda cool. His signature difference in terms of powers would have to be his Venom. It's like a form of bioelectricity that he can emit from his body and use in some really cool ways, like in punches and beams and blasts, or in his webbing. But Miles is also able to use a spider camouflage to make his whole body invisible. Miles has made his way into the 616 Earth universe and has pretty much been his own hero ever since on the Avengers and other teams, and he hasn't been stopped really at all, aka he's unstoppable. Number 2. The Thing. The longtime childhood friend of Reed Richards, Ben Grimm met up with his old friend when backpacking through the Nevada desert, like you do. This happened to coincide with Reed working on a test of a teleportation project going through the dimensional barrier into the end zone, as it's called, quote unquote. Ben wanted to see what his friend was up to, and Reed got him clearance to observe, but unfortunately, before the test started, Victor Von Doom, or Victor Von Dam as he's called here, adjusted the coordinates on the machine, causing it to malfunction and tear open a dimensional breach, sending all 5 witnesses to different locations. Ben awakened in a small village in Mexico, but also discovered that the end zone energy had increased his body mass, transforming him into a gargantuan thing with flesh made of living rock. It's really weird. Now, as a member of the Fantastic Four, he found new purpose until the team broke up following Ultimatum. What sets him drastically apart from his main universe self, though, is that the Thing eventually developed a second power, to transform from his rocky appearance to one composed of purple energy, with the added benefit, on top of all of his other powers, to project energy. He also gained Sue Storm as his wife, so given all that, it's safe to say that Ultimate Ben Grimm is pretty unstoppable. And in at number 1 is Spider-Man. For a lot of people, Brian Michael Bendis' legendary Ultimate Spider-Man run that kicked off the whole Ultimate Universe in the first place is among the best of the best Spider-Man runs ever told. Peter Parker is a modern-day 15-year-old, still trying to balance his life as a teenager and a superhero. What's different from this version when compared to the regular Spider-Man is that Peter Parker's life is much more relatable and digestible for anyone born in the past 25 years. For starters, Peter isn't a photographer when he first starts at the Daily Bugle. Being a tech-savvy teenager, our hero is one of the Daily Bugle's top web designers. J. Jonah Jameson also isn't a bumbling buffoon, he's a battle-tested, competent newspaper editor that's well aware of how to handle his staff. Spider-Man's interactions with other heroes are a bit more grounded in Ultimate Spider-Man as well, as his love life being much more entertaining and realistic. Whether it's Kitty Pryde or Mary Jane Watson, Peter Parker's love life never really has a dull moment. Even Spider-Man's physical appearance makes more sense. Peter Parker has the build of a realistic, nerdy teenager, and the costume's huge bug-eyed lenses make for a perfect representation of a youthful hero. He may be stopped on multiple occasions, but the importance of this version of Spider-Man makes him pretty unstoppable in my heart. Number 10, Swordsman. When the world's heroes gave up their lives in order to destroy the villain Onslaught, what they didn't know is that Franklin Richards had subconsciously created a pocket universe to save everyone. No one knew of this, and they spent an entire year on this counter-Earth reliving their new lives as heroes reborn, because that was the name of the comic. One of these heroes that seemed to be native to this pocket universe was a guy by the name of Swordsman. Swordsman was a member of the Avengers, and he was with them in their fights with Loki, Kang, and the Hulk, and eventually he became the last Avenger when the other Avengers went back to Earth 616. Now sadly, Swordsman ended up getting cancer, and in an effort to keep the world safe, he created a new team of heroes called the Remnants, leading them under his new name, Deadpool. Unfortunately, he had to retire from superheroing because of the cancer, but then, in a sudden twist, Deadpool/Swordsman learns that his entire reality and everyone in it is actually just the fabrication of a young boy named Franklin, and he goes absolutely mad and wants to destroy the entire dimension. He steals a SHIELD helicarrier filled with nuclear boom booms, and then launches all of them at the Watcher's Citadel on the moon, riding one of them along the way. Turns out he actually creates a tear in space and time and meets an evil core of Deadpool's, and he joins up. Number 9, Kidpool. I am putting Kidpool on this list for pretty much one reason. 2 words: lightsabers. Technically, it's 1 word, just let me live. Anyone who wields a lightsaber is automatically just better, okay? And when that person is a pre-puberty Wade Wilson, and he wields not just 1, but 2 lightsabers, is beautiful. Hailing from Earth 10330, Wade Wilson was a new student of the Xavier Orphanage for Troubled Boys, and he really was a troubled boy. Unfortunately, this means he was a little bit of a loner. He got put in detention with a kid version of Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, and so Wade and Scott decided to team up and escape from detention and go crash the prom so Scott could be with Jean Grey. At the prom, Wade ended up getting into a battle of fisticuffs with the kid-sized version of Logan, aka Wolverine, and the fight made the prom come to a halt and saw Kidpool get embarrassed in front of all the other kids. So he decided to leave, but just when that happened, he was confronted by 616 Deadpool and joined up with his good guy Deadpool Core. Number 8, Hulkpool. Hulked Out Heroes is a nice, sweet little 2-issue comic that is honestly just the best. Basically, MODOK and the leader had gamma mutated a few pretty powerful heroes like Thor and the Thing and Wolverine and a whole bunch of them, and that on its own is dope. But they also gamma mutated Deadpool so that he is now Hulkpool, and he and Bob decided to head off to do their own thing. They head to Thunder's base and use her time machinery, and Bob sends Hulkpool back through time with the intention of crushing his normal weak Deadpool self. Because, I don't know, I guess paradoxes don't exist here. Instead, Bob accidentally sends Hulkpool on a trip through time, starting in 1717 on board a pirate ship where Ben Grimm, the Thing, has taken on the role of Blackbeard. Hulkpool joins him as his first mate, and they face off against a giant squid until Bob sends them back even further and they come face to face with Devil Dinosaur. After that whole chaotic journey, all three of them are time displaced to the Wild West where, of all people, they run into Hawkeye. Hulkpool travels again, but this time he ends up at the exact moment when Captain America and Bucky Barnes are in the process of completing the mission where Bucky tragically passes away, quote unquote, because we know what actually happens. And Hulkpool stops the whole thing from happening in the first place. Not only that, but he helps Cap take down the Red Skull and Germany's leader in one go. Not bad. He stops Matt Murdock from getting covered in toxic waste, Doctor Strange from getting in his car crash, the Fantastic Four from going to space, Donald Blake from becoming Thor, Peter Parker from being bit by a spider, Tony Stark from being taken hostage, and Bruce Banner from being gamma irradiated. All before he finally faces himself from the day before, only to find out that he's created a whole new timeline and that pirate Ben Grimm became the first president of the United States, and Bob is hailed as a god. Number 7. Venompool. Venompool hails from Earth 90211 from a reality stuck in the 1980s. In the story, the Beyonder decided to live the life of the party, and Spider-Man is still bonded with the Venom symbiote. Well, when Deadpool is hired by Galactus to kill the Beyonder, Deadpool tracked down his target to a nightclub, but found he was enticed into the Beyonder's partying lifestyle, getting Jerry curls in the process. While hanging out with the Beyonder in a flying limousine, because of course, Spider-Man breaks into the car out of nowhere and demands Beyonder remove the symbiote costume from him. In a freak moment, Spider-Man is attacked by the limo driver, and the symbiote ends up bonding with Deadpool instead. After a while, the Beyonder got sick of the Deadpool/symbiote amalgamation and ditches him, which, you can imagine, didn't sit very well with Venompool. He ends up going back to his mission and tries to bring down the Beyonder with a weapon called the Recton Expungifier. There's a lot to this story, but I don't want to rob you the satisfaction of reading it yourself, so we're moving on. Number 6. Gwenpool. Gwenpool came from a universe a lot like ours, meaning superheroes were all fictional characters in her world, with origins and stories printed in comic books. Well, Gwen was obsessed with them. Thanks to a series of events, when she wound up in the Marvel Universe, she put on a costume and became a mercenary as Gwenpool. Gwen is a regular human, but she knew all this was fictional inside a comic book, which allows her to completely break the fourth wall, which has helped her snag victories on multiple occasions, not to mention the fact that she knows everything about pretty much every hero. Her knowledge that everything is in a comic book also allows her to completely detach from anyone she is hired to take down, making her a pretty effective merc. Despite that, Gwen has grown to care for the people that inhabit her adopted universe, though she continues to believe that she is a fictional character in a comic book. Gwen's chief enemy is MODOK, the mental organism designed only for killing. Gwen was part of MODOK's mercenary group for a short time until the boss realized that Gwen possessed no actual skills at all, making him pretty peed off. Gwenpool is awesome, and she has the ability to bring people into the space between comic panels, which is just a level of meta that I'm not ready for right now. Number 5. Death Mask Deadpool. When Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, comes up with a revolutionary new method for dealing with cancer, he removes a tumor from Wade Wilson's head. What I think no one expected was that removing this tumor had the side effect of making Wade's insanity completely disappear. Deadpool suddenly becomes hyper intelligent, and his insanity instead turns him into becoming a super criminal with a super criminal empire. Now going by Death Wish and looking a hell of a lot like Dr. Doom, Wade basically is Dr. Doom, taking his place as King of Latveria and wearing a super sweet death mask armor. He plans to attack the alternate Earth 616 Deadpool, but when he's defeated, he goes and makes a deal with Mephisto to unleash a literal hell on his Earth. Number 4. Captain Universe Pool. In the comic Deadpool v Thanos, in the Patchwork Battle World, Thanos and Deadpool team up to look for Lady Death. Turns out that the entity had been kidnapped by a rival cosmic force, Eternity. And it turns out that Eternity is pretty peeved about being ridiculed and separated by the Infinity Gems, and Galactus' hunger, and the Annihilation Wave, and Death's Embrace. I don't know. The In-Betweener comes in to talk some sense into Eternity, but meanwhile, Deadpool sees an opportunity and tries freeing Mistress Death, which didn't go so smoothly, and a fight breaks out. Thanos betrays Deadpool and starts to completely pummel Eternity, a cosmic entity, which makes no sense to me. Deadpool attacks Thanos, who simply throws the merc with the mouth into eternity. Now this is where it starts to get wacky, apparently. Inside the cosmic being, Wade meets the Unipower, who bestows that power onto Wade, and boom, enter Captain Universe Deadpool. With his newfound power, he was able to go blow for blow with a death-powered Thanos. Deadpool doesn't technically win, but Death is able to see the error of her ways, and she takes back her power from Thanos, causing Grimace to explode. Nice. Number 3, Ladypool. Wanda Wilson is the Deadpool of Earth 3010. But since she is one of a very few female Deadpools, she naturally is titled Ladypool. Lady Deadpool joined the side of a group of rebels fighting against loyalists in the United States in her own universe, that were led by Ladypool's nemesis, General America. Yes, that's Captain America, but a general. According to Wanda, the fight started when fascists in the federal government started to impose their will on the people. As a result, a schism in Congress occurred, generals took sides, and states declared independence, which led to the current predicament. Eventually, she is assisted by 616 Deadpool, and she ends up becoming a main part of the good Deadpool Corps, and eventually she becomes the leader of that group, sacrificing herself and the Corps' ship in a fight against the evil Deadpool Corps and Galactuspool. Number 2, Ultimate Deadpool. The Ultimate Universe has a lot of fresh takes on 616 heroes, but Deadpool got some rather unique changes that I'm not sure how I feel about, honestly. It's giving me strong X-Men Origins Wolverine vibes, which came out 3 years after this comic, so I'm not saying this comic inspired whatever they did to Deadpool in that movie, but I can't say that it didn't. Just saying, pointing that out. The Ultimate Marvel version of Deadpool was a sergeant in the military named Wade Wilson. He's grim, he's angry, he's way too serious, and he's also an incredibly racist mutant hater. Oh, he was also a cyborg with incredible strength, retained his signature healing factor, and instead of just being disfigured, he had no skin at all, and is missing parts of his skull. So his head instead is encased in a clear plastic helmet for everyone to see. Yay! Deadpool leads the Reavers, who are also pretty horrible in trying to take out prominent mutants, but on live television, like it was for sport or something. Thankfully, Ultimate Deadpool was taken off of the board by 616 Deadpool and Deadpool Kills Deadpool in 2013. Deadpool. Number 1, Dreadpool. In the Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe storyline, Deathpool murders every single superhero there is in his quest to end all of creation. Deathpool even rises against the divine powers that created the Marvel Universe, meaning the literal writers, and he won. We're introduced to this character being dragged to Psycho Man by the X-Men in an attempt to cure Wade of his insanity. Psycho Man's procedure silenced all the voices in Deadpool's head, but brought out a new one, the Ultimate Murderer. This voice is aware of himself being a fictional character and is adamantly convinced that his only salvation is to kill everything there is. Dreadpool went on a complete killing spree, ending the lives of the X-Men, the Avengers, Doctor Doom, Taskmaster, Thanos, and Galactus, but he didn't stop there. The Ultimate Murderer persona had gone so far that he decided to eradicate other versions of himself, namely the 616 Deadpool. Dreadpool and Deadpool each made their own Deadpool cores, assembled from alternate Deadpools throughout the multiverse, and they went head to head. But you can read that for yourself.
Number 10, Falcon. Well, there have been many different Ghost Riders across time and the multiverse. Sometimes we only have to look as far as our own 616 backyard to find some really unstoppable versions of this character. And this includes when Falcon himself was turned into a Ghost Rider. This all went down during Doctor Strange Damnation issue number 1, where Doctor Strange basically made a bet against Mephisto and lost that bet, who at that time had basically taken over Las Vegas and had bigger plans in regards to world domination, or should I say damnation. When Falcon was transformed into a Ghost Rider, he also carried with him his skills and abilities as a hero, which made him a pretty tough one to face when Strange's Midnight Suns were called into action. When he was pulled over to the Ghost Rider side, it was in a moment of weakness when he and the other Avengers let their differences get in the way of them saving people, which basically resulted in them beginning to fight in the midst of trying to respond to the chaos that was happening in Las Vegas. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to let us know by clicking that like button. Number 9, Ghost Rider 2099. The Ghost Rider of the future is basically like the Terminator. Kenshiro Zero Cochrane was attempting a hack with his gang when they were attacked by a rival gang, who basically attempted to steal the encrypted data that they had successfully stolen, but hadn't yet cracked themselves. In the end, Zero's gang was killed and Zero himself was in the process of dying, so he decided to upload the encrypted data in his last few moments Romans to his girlfriend before attempting to fry the implants in his own head so that the gang wouldn't get any information from him in regards to what they were looking for. When he awoke, he was in cyberspace and ended up being offered a place in the world once more as a futuristic spirit of vengeance, given a second chance by advanced AI, who saw the world to be on the verge of collapse, where corporations would in essence devour and basically destroy everything. As a basically fully cybernetic Ghost Rider, Zero has the benefit of having a body that is completely made out of weapons, with him being uploaded into, in essence, a war machine. He also has the benefit of never really being able to die, as he could always just be re-uploaded into another bot if need be. Kinda like exists in like the cyberspace. Number 8. Black Panther. Black Panther is another character who ended up being pulled over to the side of Mephisto, seemingly becoming a member of Mephisto's Ghost Rider Avengers in the series Doctor Strange Damnation for a brief time. He's also one of the characters the Midnight Suns are forced to confront. Black Panther has a lot of power all of his own, never mind as a Ghost Rider in addition to that. He's also a pretty insane force to have on your side, especially on Mephisto's side, and operating as one of his Ghost Riders, when you also consider the political power that T'Challa has as the King of Wakanda, and at the time as the leader of the Avengers. Black Panther is one of the Ghost Rider Avengers who greet the Midnight Suns when they first arrive in Las Vegas. They are not solely confronted by him and the other Avengers though, and I suppose calling them Strange's Midnight Suns earlier was a little hasty of me, although that is kind of what happens later, considering the role that Strange plays in this story. Really, it would be more accurate to call this formation of the Midnight Suns Wong's team, perhaps. Wong, one of my favorites. Number 7. Ghost Rider, Trail of Tears. This alternate version of Ghost Rider has such a tragic story, and is definitely one of those Ghost Riders that would simply never give up. In fact, in a way, him being so unstoppable was kind of his downfall, as this version of Ghost Rider became aware of the curse that basically comes with being the spirit of vengeance. Like, it literally is a curse when you think about it. For this point, we're focusing on a Ghost Rider who is still from the main continuity, but exists in the past. Caleb. Caleb was a free man who managed to acquire freedom for his wife and for himself in and around the time of the American Civil War. I love Caleb not just because he is a super powerful Ghost Rider with some unique abilities, but also because his story feels unstoppable in the sense that, I mean, it's really great. It also comes with a moral that we honestly don't see enough in stories like Ghost Rider, with Caleb at the end basically acknowledging that he is cursed to hunt for vengeance, a quest that will never end. Well, this is, I guess I should more say, although Ghost Rider we do touch on it a little bit more, but in comics we don't touch on that as much as I think we should. And Caleb realizes that no matter how noble the cause may seem, anyone that hunts for vengeance is basically already damned. Number 6. Mighty Thor. Mighty Thor would have to be one of the most epic characters to have become a Ghost Rider in recent history. I mean, the power of Thor and Mjolnir alone are insane. Combine those with becoming a Ghost Rider and you become pretty undefeatable, I would say. We see this happen in action when Mighty Thor Jane Foster also joins Mephisto's side of the fight against the Midnight Suns in Doctor Strange Damnation. In issue number 3 of the series, Mighty Thor swings her hammer at Blade, and later we see her in one-on-one combat briefly fighting against Dr. Voodoo. Fortunately, that was all that was needed for Johnny Blaze, also fighting alongside the Midnight Suns against Mephisto as opposed to for him, to push ahead and face Mephisto himself. However, it just goes to show how hard it is to actually fight against a Ghost Rider version of Mighty Thor. And even then, Mephisto's Ghost Riders, Mighty Thor included, seem to be doing their job at that point, remaining pretty unstoppable, at least as of issue 3, as Mephisto takes away Johnny's curse, freeing him and making him human again, only so he can basically threaten his now very immortal life. Number 5. Robbie Reyes. Well, not really an alternate in the traditional sense, considering that Robbie is the current main Ghost Rider in the Earth 616 continuity right now. He's not necessarily the first person most think of when it comes to the Ghost Rider mantle, considering that he's the latest one to become the main Ghost Rider in canon, but you know, isn't the person that's been Ghost Rider the longest, I'd say. Fans of the more classic Ghost Rider character likely think of Johnny Blaze, or perhaps, if they were comic fans more in the 90s, Danny Ketch. And while the first person I do think of myself is Robbie at this point, well, maybe like Johnny and then Robbie, it's pretty close between those two, this is why I decided to include him here. Also, it's hard when we talk Ghost Riders, plural, to keep it all multiversal. I mean, there's just so many powerful and amazing Ghost Rider alternate characters that exist just within the main universe. Robbie Reyes may be one of the new riders on the block, but that does not diminish his power or the fact that he often refuses to back down from a fight, even fights that seem completely unwinnable. Number 4. Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel also for a time became a Ghost Rider during Doctor Strange Damnation. In fact, in issue number 4, we see her fight against Doctor Strange himself, taking him on in his own Ghost Rider form. Alas, she is also a pawn of Mephisto's, which means for our heroes in this story, she is just the wrong kind of unstoppable, one they have to battle against, and honestly, you do not want to fight an unstoppable villain, especially one that packs as much of a punch as Carol does on a good day, and who also now has the added bonus of all the Ghost Rider's powers too. Fortunately, Wong has a few tricks up his sleeve, and Carol ends up turning her Ghost Rider wrath on Mephisto in the end, thanks to some major plays Wong made in secret, which are then revealed of course. He knew Mephisto's weakness, that while he ruled on Earth, his seat in Hell would be vacant, and so he sent Johnny Blaze to his doom, knowing that Johnny, once taken off the board on the earthly plane, would then be free to take over for Mephisto in Hell as its ruler. Pretty smart thinking, Wong. Number 3. Ghost Hammer. Hailing from Warp World, which we got to explore in Infinity Warps when Gamora folded the universe in half and trapped it inside of the Soul Gem, this is a variant that really packs a punch. Speaking of people that can pack a punch. Ghost Hammer, like many from Warp World, is of course a Marvel amalgam character. And not even just that, he's actually an amalgam character of an amalgam character within the Marvel universe. Ghost Hammer is both Ghost Panther and Iron Hammer combined. Ghost Panther is a combination of the characters of both Ghost Rider and Black Panther, and Iron Hammer amalgamates Iron Man and Thor into one character. So combining the two of those characters together, we get one insanely super powerful character that is not made up of just two different characters really, but instead 4 different ones, who have been folded together once and then of course once more to give us Ghost Hammer. Ghost Hammer comes equipped with Mjolnir, which for one of Ghost Hammer's previous forms, Iron Hammer, was also used to help him access the power of his suit. Number 2. Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange becomes probably one of the most powerful Ghost Riders to have ever ghost ridden in Doctor Strange Damnation. Here he attempts to face Mephisto alone and ends up being, well, pretty beaten at first, turned into one of his Ghost Riders. Fortunately, he has bats with him. His ghost doggo ends up possessing Steven to save him from hurting Wong. In the end, after Johnny has become ruler of Mephisto's Hell Dimension, Wong even helps Steven to become something greater, giving him the souls of all the dead Avengers for a brief moment so he doesn't have to feel alone. Aww. In essence, making him an Avenger god. But even before, when he was just a soulless Ghost Rider Doctor Strange, he would have been something fierce to see. The mystic knowledge that Steven has, combined with the powers of Ghost Rider, I'd say alone are pretty unstoppable. And when you add in a soul from bats possessing Strange's body, you also still end up being unstoppable enough. Even probably while less aware of, the finer details of battle, as I don't think Bats is, like a master tactician or anything like that. Bats though still could go head to head with Ghost Rider Captain Marvel, which I think speaks for itself. That's still pretty impressive. Number 1. Cosmic Ghost Rider. Maybe one of the most unstoppable versions of Ghost Rider around, definitely on this list, is Cosmic Ghost Rider. Cosmic Ghost Rider first appeared on the scene back in the 2017 Thanos series, and right away he became a very strange but very obvious fan favorite. I personally am one of the people that love him. He is one of the most ultimate Ghost Riders because he is also like the Punisher, an anti-hero well known for his ability to bulldoze through most of his enemies despite really just being a human without any real superpowers to speak of himself. He is also of course known for his ability to never give up, and this is showcased during his time as Cosmic Ghost Rider. Even with all of those he knew and loved from Earth gone and defeated by Thanos upon his return, Frank Castle still sought vengeance. And even after that was not possible, he regrettably joined up as Thanos' herald and still kept going somehow. He died, went to Valhalla, and then returned to have some time traveling adventures after Odin realized he wasn't really super happy there and didn't really quite fit in.
Coming in at number 10 is Twinkie Spider-Man. While originally a crossover advertisement deal between Marvel Comics and Hostess, the company that owns Twinkies, Snowballs, and those cupcake snack pastries, the Spider-Man of Earth 51914 is an official member of the Spider-Verse, being defeated by Morlun in the first Spider-Verse comic in 2014. But Morlun has defeated many Spider-Totems totems, it's his whole thing. This sweet Spider-Man has all the same powers as our 616 Spider-based hero, only he has the added benefit of using Hostess snacks as equipment, whether it be to distract, lure, and reason with criminals, and even get out of tight spots in his relationship, like when he gave Mary Jane a cupcake so he could slip away to fight crime. The power of sweet pastries should not be undervalued. Using his pastry-based equipment, he was able to defeat The Fly, Printout Man, Simon the Evil Swami, Madame Web, Legal Eagle, an unnamed jewel thief, Chairman, Homewrecker, Demolition Derby, Photoman, Hotshot, Junjitsu, Larcenarus Lil, and the Human Computer. So yeah, it's not just a sponsor, it is an added ability that puts him a little bit of a cut above, in my opinion. Number 9, Spider-Man Noir. A grittier, more serious, and ruthless world calls for a Peter Parker who's pretty much the same, and the Spider-Man Noir is definitely that guy. After he seeks out revenge on the Goblin for taking away the life of his Uncle Ben, he goes to a warehouse where a spider idol containing thousands of spiders is broken. One of these spiders bites Peter and Bob's your uncle. Peter has visions of a spider god and is granted abilities. He is granted most of the same powers as regular Spider-Man with a bit less strength and a stronger healing factor, but with the ability to use organic webbing, Spider-Man Noir may not be the most powerful character in the Spider-Verse. There are plenty of others who have added abilities or play a larger hand in the conflict, but he has the power of popularity on his side, being a fan favorite character ever since his introduction, which is why, in my opinion, he's one of the few alternate Spider-Men to survive more Lund, despite whatever excuse the comic gave. Also, he looks super cool. Hey nerds! Before we carry on, be sure to check out our channel and subscribe for more comic book content just like this. Alright, let's flip back to the list. Number 8, Peni Parker. This Parker from Earth 14512 doesn't actually have any powers of her own, and while that may make her a little bit of a strange choice for an unstoppable Spider-Man list, she makes up for it with the totally awesome mech spider suit worn by her father before his demise, and that is half controlled by a radioactive spider. First appearing in Edge of Spider-Verse number 5 in October of 2014, Peni and the spider mech are essentially able to do anything you'd expect from a Spider-Man, and technically she doesn't actually have any written limitations yet. Yes, that's a lame reason for her to be so powerful, but it's a legit reason all the same. The mech suit is outfitted with weapons for basically any situation a story calls for, and defenses that would put pretty much any other Spider-Man to shame. Peni also played a pretty prominent role in the animated Spider-Verse movie, and she's become an extremely popular character, which as we know, makes her just a smidge more powerful. Number 7, Superior Spider-Man. This one is a little odd. It's Dr. Otto Octavius, yes, Doc Ock, but nearing his mortal end, he switches bodies with Peter Parker, sending Peter off to Spidey Heaven, temporarily, and Otto finds himself taking on the heroic role of Spider-Man. But he isn't evil! Being in the body of Peter gave Otto an insight into Peter's life and motivation, and actually gave him a change of heart. Now, we have a Spider-Man with all the powers of Peter Parker, but the super genius intellect and cold heart of Otto Octavius. Spider-Ock, or as people call him, Spock, changes things. He took his genius and experience and applied it, making an awesome new suit, spider bots, and mechanical arms. He also straight up took a few villains to their graves and even single-handedly defeated the Sinister Six, taking the Living Brain as a trophy. He completely dumps MJ, which is kind of a downside, but starts a relationship with Anna Maria Marconi, who became a popular addition to the Spider-Man canon. He purged Carly Cooper of the Goblin Serum, helped Aunt May walk again, got Peter his PhD, mainly for clout, and built a scientific empire that would make him a multi-billionaire. And a version of him played a huge role in the Spider-Verse event, even leading a whole team of spider totems. Number 6, Zombie Spider-Man. Yes, Zombie Spider-Man is essentially the same Spider-Man everyone is used to. All the same powers at least, except after being bit by a zombie, he now also has a ravenous hunger that cannot be sated no matter what, combined with the fact that he is essentially undead and can take a whole whack more punishment. Both of those factors led him and a group of other heroes to consume the Silver Surfer and Galactus, which gave them all the cosmic power, or the power cosmic, however you want to say it. With this power cosmic, the zombie Galacti, which is what they called themselves, have the ability to absorb and tap ambient cosmic energy into their bodies at will and expel those energies, like channeling beams of energy energy through their hands and teleporting through time and space, devouring entire planets. With this power, they have the potential to phase through objects, accelerate the evolution of life forms, see the past by peeling back the layers of time travel, and to manipulate, absorb, and discharge any form of energy or radiation. But they mainly use it to get their next snack. Though Spider-Zombie loses all of this power, he still had it and was an incredibly powerful version of Spider-Man, and he kept surviving into the new zombie world they eventually ended up on. Number 5. Peter Parker of Earth 92100. You'd think the addition of extra arms for a Spider-Man would be an added benefit. When it happened to Peter in the 616 universe though, he freaked the hell out and pretty quickly got rid of the extra limbs using the DNA of Michael Morbius. To be honest, if I sprouted 2 extra sets of arms, I'd probably be a little freaked out too. I also kinda wonder how the musculature of your body would change, but I'm getting off topic. On Earth 92100, when Peter grew his extra limbs, unfortunately, Morbius did not live long enough to help Peter because he was eaten by sharks, which meant that Peter kind of had to just deal with it. Well, what do you know, turns out during a fight with Doc Ock, after Peter embraced his extra appendages, they actually give him a distinct advantage. The added arms seem to grant him much more strength and agility, and using them he is even able to save Gwen Stacy from her demise at the hands of the Green Goblin. Unfortunately, these arms don't really protect him from the Inheritors, but they didn't really beat him. Instead, he sacrificed himself to save Spider-Man 2099 and Lady Spider from the Inheritors in Spider-Man 2099 Volume 2 Number 6 in 2014. Number 4. Silk. Cindy Moon's first appearance in the comics was actually as a cameo in issue 1 of the 2014 Amazing Spider-Man reboot. In that comic, we see the events that lead to Peter Parker becoming Spider-Man. A spider gets caught in a particle collider and becomes heavily irradiated, and then it goes off to bite Peter Parker. But after this spider drops off Peter, it crawls along the floor before climbing onto and biting the ankle of a random girl who also happened to be there as well. This girl was Cindy Moon. Just like Peter Parker, Cindy Moon gained amazing spider-related abilities. Cindy got the attention of a man known as Ezekiel Sims, who came and took her away and began training her in how to use her powers for good. He was a mentor and a father figure for her while she was with him, and after he discovered that Morlun was tracking her, he and Cindy agreed that she should be hidden away. That is, until Peter Parker found her. Silk possesses an extrasensory hyper, danger, or silk sense, which is more advanced than the spider sense of Spider-Man and other spider totems. It allows her to react significantly faster in combat for starters, but it also has superior range, and can even sense the identity of an attacker before a fight even begins. Cindy can also weirdly spin webs from her fingertips, and on top of that, she was the avatar of a powerful spider totem called the Bride, which made her play an integral part of the huge multiversal Spider-Verse event from 2014. Number 3. Mayday Parker. First appearing in a What If comic, specifically number 105 from December 1997, the daughter of Peter Parker and Mary Jane from a future alternate world, Earth 982, Mayday Parker becomes Spider-Girl and eventually Spider-Woman, and fills the role that her father once held as the next generation of heroes. Where she is only slightly weaker than Peter in the strength department, she is much more agile and has a stronger, more precise spider sense. But her ability to stick to surfaces is considerably more powerful than Peter's as well. However, wall crawling does not come as naturally to May, and she has to concentrate to stick to surfaces. She also has the ability to transmit this ability through objects for short distances. So, as an example, Spider-Girl could stick to the floor and transmit the electrostatic stickiness through the floor, making everyone and everything stuck in place to the floor. I said floor a lot, and that was kind of weird. But what's even cooler is that she can reverse the ability, and instead of stick, she can repel off a surface. This adds power to her jumps, but it can also be used to repel people and objects away from her at a pretty considerable speed. Number 2. Kaine Parker. The Clone Saga of the 90s is considered to be pretty infamous by fans of Spider-Man, but while it introduced a lot of strange elements into the continuity, it also added some pretty amazing characters in the form of Ben Reilly and Kaine Parker, two somewhat overlooked but powerful Spider-Man clones from that saga. Kaine is a great character with a really great arc that even saw him have his own Scarlet Spider series. Now his powers are almost identical to Peter Parker, but luckily for him, these powers were slightly altered thanks to him being a clone. While we're on the topic of power-ups though, there is a reason reason I chose Kaine for this spot over Ben Reilly, who seems to be the more popular clone. Thanks to an ancient prophecy involving spider totems, Kaine could transform into a giant tarantula-like monster known as the Other. On top of his spider powers, he gained venomous bone-like stingers which extended from his forearms, night vision, and enough power to defeat the leader of the Inheritors in the Spider-Verse event, before he was set back to normal. And in at number 1, Spider-Man. Just good old friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. He is essentially the face of Marvel Comics, and almost everyone who just knows of comic books knows of Spider-Man. Sure, Spider-Man has been defeated and even lost his life, but he always comes back, and there is a very low possibility that he will ever be brought down for good. Spider-Man has got more than popularity though. He is also very inspiring, actually really strong, and incredibly intelligent. He is seen and respected as one of the most righteous and brave heroes around, and his heroic attitude, sense of responsibility, almost perfect moral compass, and quick wit make him beloved by not only fans but other heroes and even some villains. But above all that, it's his willpower that I think makes him truly unstoppable. Even in the face of certain death, Spider-Man will always get back to his feet, which has allowed him to use his incredible abilities to perform truly incredible feats. Speaking of his powers, Spider-Man possesses the proportional powers of a spider, like we all know, but he's still done things that even a human-sized spider would not be able to do, and his spider sense gives him an edge in battle that, combined with his other abilities, has made him next to unstoppable. And even when placed beside all the other Spider-Men and Spider-Women of the Spider-Verse event, he was acknowledged as the most powerful one. Coming in at number 10 is Dark Claw. So, what happens if you take Logan, Howlett, and Bruce Wayne and just mash them up together? You subtract Robins, add some Canada, carry the two, and you'll find you get Logan Wayne. This awesome character is from the amalgam universe of Earth 9602. Obviously, Bruce Wayne has no actual powers of his own unless you count his undeniable skill, so most of the abilities belonging to Logan Wayne come from his Wolverine half. A massively powerful regenerative healing factor, slowed aging, superhuman senses, plus his healing factor and adamantium skeleton allow him to have a degree of super strength. But thanks to his Wayne half of things, Darkclaw is a master detective and master of martial arts, stealth, acrobatics, and intimidation. After he witnessed the passing of his parents, Logan went to live with his uncle up in Alberta, Canada, who then also lost his life to poachers. So yes, this is still as dark as both Bruce and Logan's backstories. He then went to kick it with some nuns and then joined up with the Canadian Air Force. Now after this, at some point, he joined the Weapon X program and learned of his mutation and gained his claws alongside his incredibly dangerous rival, Creed H. Quinn, who would become a saber-toothed Joker hybrid named Hyena. Logan Wayne would go back to New Gotham City, where he decided to avenge his parents' and uncle's deaths by donning the costume and name of Darkclaw. Number 9. Sideburns. When Galactica, the daughter of Galactus, is looking for her next meal in issue 1 of her self-titled comic, she finds Earth, a lovely little morsel of a planet teeming with scrumptious life. But while looking at her dinner, she happens to notice Wolverine, a mutant who can seemingly regenerate from anything. I mean, there's also Deadpool, but whatever. Realizing his mutant regenerative abilities, she formulates an idea of using a bit of his harvested DNA with a bit of celestial power to create Sideburns, the regenerating planet. A planet-sized Wolverine that would grow back after each meal, giving the World Devourer billions and billions of years of meals. Unfortunately, she just as quickly realizes that a planet made up of Canadian mutant DNA like this, prone to drinking beer over anything else, and with predilection to being feral, would be highly unstable. Unfortunate, because I'd love to see this guy floating around through the galaxy. Number 8. House of M Wolverine. Now to be clear, technically this version of Wolverine is just regular old 616 Wolverine, since unlike other characters in this Scarlet Witch created reality, Wolverine retains all of his old memories, which gives him a distinct advantage in this world. But outside of his story-serving memories, before he regains those memories, this Wolverine was a member of Magneto's Red Guard, which saw him have additional training as a SHIELD operative, adding extra skill to a character who is hard to even scratch on a villain's best day. Also, in this reality, Logan has himself a little relationship with Mystique, unlike his alternates who seem to always be pining after Jean Grey. Is this an advantage over regular Wolverine? depends on your taste. Number 7. Vampire Wolverine. In What If number 24, thanks to his healing factor, Wolverine is actually immune to being turned into a vampire from just a regular old bite, which allows him to be the best one suited to bring down the threat of vampires themselves. But when he finally takes down Dracula, he actually decides to have a little snack on the dead vampire, which does turn the mutant into not just a vampire, but the new vampire king. The fact that Vampire Wolverine is a vampire means that his strength and speed are enhanced to vampiric levels. On top of that, he has an evil personality that is fueled by the character's desire to drain the blood of the living. Now couple that with his already somewhat feral personality, his healing factor, adamantium skeleton, and the vampire trait of immortality, and he is very dangerous compared to the usual Wolverine. Number 6. Ultimate Wolverine. I'm gonna be honest, this version of Wolverine is a bit alarming in terms of his morals and preferences, and just his behavior in general is just a bit less heroic than his 616 counterpart. But despite that, it is hard not to admit that he is quite the powerful character. His healing factor is a bit different than his prime version and is called a survival factor. That means he can survive being torn in half, departed from his head, and even blown up by a nuclear explosion. He can also detect lies and still has an adamantium skeleton. He was trained by Weapon X as an emotionless assassin, but when the Brotherhood hired him to take out Xavier, he proves he is more than just muscle, overcoming his brainwashing and joining the X-Men. Although, it may have only been just because he fell in love with the teenage Jean Grey when he was like 30 years old, which is a little uncomfortable. Number 5. Days of Future Past. Wolverine in the Days of Future Past storyline comes from a future world that has become apocalyptic because of the Sentinels, which basically eradicated mutants by the thousands and ended up enslaving the planet, both mutant and humankind alike. Now Wolverine, who in this future is older and by extension more experienced, is a more powerful version of his 616 counterpart. He still has all the powers of the regular Wolverine, but he just works a lot smarter. Unfortunately, he still ends up passing when a Sentinel destroys him, leaving only his adamantium skeleton behind. But thanks to comics being comics, this version is revived and appears again much later on in Earth X, standing in for this Earth's Wolverine, who had finally married and settled down with Jean Grey, which I think makes him more powerful, but he also really settled, grew a rather large gut, and seems to have completely distanced himself from his former self. Jean also abandons her former life and is now an out-of-shape housewife chasing after their kids and resenting her choice to marry Logan. So yes, Days of Future Past Logan was needed here for sure. Number 4. Old Man Logan. In the alternate universe where we are introduced to Old Man Logan and Old Man Hawkeye, everything is in shambles. It's an apocalyptic wasteland, and all because the villains, under the leadership of the Red Skull, had coordinated a massive attack on the world's superheroes, leaving only a very few alive. Logan himself was tricked into wiping out every single member of the X-Men, and while that is tragic, I do have to say that's incredibly impressive. Like, damn. Impressive or not, it drove Logan mad with grief and he vowed to become a pacifist. He retired to a quiet farming family life, letting the world go to hell around him, but we need a story, so that can't fly. Eventually, being short on money and needing to help his family, he joins Hawkeye on an adventure across America to deliver a briefcase of super soldier serum. After he goes on this grand adventure, defeats the Red Skull, and returns home, the Hulk gang has decimated his family. This is when he finally pops his claws for the first time since the story began, and ooh, it's satisfying. He wipes out the entire gang and eviscerates the Hulk himself, and then eventually finds his way to the main Marvel universe. Another version of him even gets the powers of Venom as well. So cool. Number 3. Weapon Omega. After the Mutant Legion went back in time and accidentally took the life of his pops, Xavier, Apocalypse came out of hibernation 10 years too early and took over control of the United States. Enter the Age of Apocalypse storyline. The Logan of Age of Apocalypse is extremely ferocious and he goes by the name Weapon X. He has only one hand after having it blasted off by Cyclops, but his claws still pop through the nub, which is kind of alarming. He and Jean Grey set off apart from the X-Men to save mutants and stop Apocalypse, but Weapon X eventually becomes the new Apocalypse, gaining his celestial and mutant powers to try and stop aliens from destroying the population of Earth. Yes, it's nuts, but I suggest you check out this story because it's super cool. Number 2. General James James Howlett. In the second volume of Extreme X-Men, joining a team of multi-dimensional mutants that hunt down evil Xaviers across many dimensions is a much different version of Wolverine. Hailing from the reality of Earth 12025, this version of our feral mutant is the Governor General of the Dominion of Canada and Viceroy of Her Majesty's Expedition to Shangri-La. He is like a version of Wolverine who is also mixed with President Theodore Roosevelt but still Canadian. General James Howlett is an adventurer and hero alongside his partner and lover, the demigod Hercules, or Heracles if you prefer and want to get smarmy in the comments. These two shared a love that was built after years and years of working together, and their bond was so strong that Herc gave James a super cool upgrade in the form of a skeleton made of adamantine, which is a godly golden metal even stronger than adamantium, making Wolverine completely indestructible and immune to telepathic attacks. Unfortunately, due to the god on mortal nature of the relationship, the Greek gods banished the pair to Tartarus, where they fight hordes and hordes of lost and damned souls for like 4 years. His penchant for big booms and affinity for political service make him a fun take on this character, and the beard? Oh, it's classic. And in at number 1 is Phoenix Logan. The Phoenix Force embodies life in the Marvel Universe. It is incredibly powerful, and when it chooses a host, that being becomes a force to be reckoned with, which is funny how it always seems to happen to characters who are already pretty damn unstoppable by themselves. Old Man Phoenix is an alternate reality version of Wolverine from Earth 14112, which features a story that is actually revolved around Old King Thor. Now, Wolverine's past resembles his Earth 616 counterpart, but it's a little different, because after Loki destroyed everyone on Earth, including Wolverine, the Phoenix Force chose Wolverine as its avatar, resurrected him, and granted him its powers. So what we have here is Wolverine's regenerative healing factor, retractable adamantium claws, and enhanced senses combined with the Phoenix's psionic powers, cosmic pyrokinesis, and flight. These factors come together to make him one of the most powerful entities in his universe, even more powerful than old King Thor himself. Coming in at number 10 is Captain America. No, Captain America is not near the top of the power hierarchy of Avenger heroes. Not by a long shot, but it's not his power that makes him unstoppable. It's his willpower. Captain America just never gives up or backs down when he believes in what he is fighting for. This is one of the big reasons that Steve Rogers has been the leading man of the Avengers. That and his genius tactical mind and his leadership skills. Almost all the Marvel heroes and even some of the Marvel villains will shut up and listen when Captain America speaks, even when those heroes and villains are leagues and bounds above Steve in terms of their power. In addition to all that, Captain America is one of the longest lasting and most popular of the Marvel heroes, and that fact also lends him some points in the unstoppability factor on the publishing side of Marvel heroes. But on top of all of that, Captain America is one hell of a fighter and is incredibly tough with his super soldier serum, bringing him to the very tippy top of the human conditioning and making him a physically perfect human, which has allowed him to withstand some pretty brutal attacks, being frozen in ice for decades, and has virtually stopped his aging. And at number 9 is Spider-Man. Just like Captain America, Spider-Man has the absolute god level of power known as popularity. He is essentially the face of Marvel Comics, and almost everyone who just knows of comic books knows of Spider-Man. Sure, Spider-Man has been defeated and even lost his life, like how he is technically currently not alive, but he always comes back, and there is a very low possibility that he will ever be brought down for good. Plus, now we have Miles Morales as well, who is going to share this spot on the list, even if he's got a few abilities that Peter doesn't have. Spider-Man has got more than popularity though. He is also very inspiring, actually really strong, and incredibly intelligent. He is seen and respected as one of the most righteous and brave heroes around, and his heroic attitude, sense of responsibility, almost perfect moral compass, and quick wit make him beloved by not only fans but other heroes and even some villains. But above all of that, it's his willpower that I think makes him truly unstoppable. Even in the face of certain deaths, Spider-Man will always get back to his feet, which has allowed him to use his incredible abilities to perform truly incredible feats. Speaking of his powers, Spider-Man possesses the proportional powers of a spider, but he's done things that even a human-sized spider would not be able to do, and his spider sense gives him an edge in battle, and that, combined with his other abilities, has made him next to unstoppable. And at number 8 is Luke Cage. Criminal turned unstoppable superhero is quite the feat, but Luke Cage handles that with grace, becoming a pillar of his community and even eventually becoming mayor of New York itself. Whenever I think of Luke Cage, the word unstoppable is what actually comes to mind. I just think of him as this big brick wall just standing in the way of anyone who would try to harm another person. Luke went through a super soldier experiment known as the Burstein process, which increased his cellular regeneration rate. This means that Luke was given a level of super strength that, with training and experience, has made him strong enough to lift 50 tons. But there have been times where he exceeded this, and his strength lets him perform thunderclaps, leap incredible distances, and he's even been able to grab onto the back of an aeroplane and force it to come to a complete stop. Alongside his strength, he was obviously given superhuman stamina to match, but what most know him for is his nigh invulnerability. Luke's skin, muscles, and bone tissue is about as hard as titanium steel, making him basically immune to bullets and blades. He can withstand hits of around 1 ton and blasts of 150 pounds of TNT, but those numbers wax and wane depending on the story. He has taken hits from people far stronger than himself and survived falls from 90 stories. If Peter Parker is the heart of New York City, Luke Cage is the bulwark. And at number 7 is Wolverine. Of course, an overly aggressive and angry Canadian will make this list. An angry Canadian is already such a rare occurrence that they have to be pretty strong, and Wolverine definitely is. Most people are well aware of Wolverine's abilities thanks to Hugh Jackman, but I am honor bound to explain them anyways. There are 2 things that make Wolverine practically unstoppable. The first would be his adamantium lace skeleton and by extension, his claws. While not a natural occurrence, Wolverine was subjected to the Weapon X program, and for him, he was given the adamantium which bonded to his skeleton, infusing it with his bones, which makes them virtually unbreakable. It also makes his claws razor sharp and gives him added weight and velocity when throwing punches and kicks. Now, if someone were to ever break his bones, which is pretty much impossible, it wouldn't really matter because one of his natural mutations is a healing factor that is only outmatched by a few other characters in the Marvel universe. His healing factor has allowed him to survive a nuclear explosion, being completely crushed by a steamroller, having his heart torn out, brutal and bloody fights with Sabretooth. He has even recovered from a single drop of blood, but he was being powered up at that time. His skeleton and his healing factor are just compounded by incredible senses, superhuman attributes, and general tough guy attitude to make him a pretty unstoppable member of the Avengers and more. And at number 6 is Ghost Rider. Everybody loves Ghost Rider. Doesn't matter who it is, a flaming skull and a flaming mount is just always cool. But not only is he really cool, he's quite a hardy fella. He is essentially impervious to almost all forms of normal damage, or the damage he has sustained, like having his head completely obliterated, didn't actually matter since he just instantly reformed it and didn't even feel it. The Ghost Rider has tanked hits from the Hulk on multiple different occasions and was one of the main heroes called in when Hulk returned for his vengeance on the Illuminati. Since his body becomes a flaming skeleton, most projectiles just pass straight through him or bounce off of his incredibly strong bones. The only things that have ever been shown to actually hurt him are heaven-forged or blessed weapons. Also, because of the divine or demonic energies that empower him, he can basically feel no fatigue or pain of any kind, and if anything were to actually damage him, he can recover from his injuries insanely quickly, almost instantly. But all that combined with his hellfire, soul, and sim manipulation, demonic magic, fallible penance stare, and other insane abilities makes Ghost Rider someone who most villains, and even heroes, fear even on their best days. At number 5 is Carol Danvers. Whether you love or hate Carol Danvers, there is no denying this energy-wielding superhero is an absolute powerhouse. Carol was the head of security at NASA when she was accidentally subjected to the Psyche Magnetron machine, which imprinted her with energy from Mar-Vell's Kree negabands. This basically means she was given superhuman strength that allowed her to support the weight of a dead celestial, super stamina that lets her exert herself for 20 24 hours before getting tired, superhuman durability to withstand planet-destroying explosions, superhuman agility and reflexes that are next to instant, a regenerative healing factor that exceeds Wolverine's and can be extended to others, self-propelled flight at 3 times the speed of sound, even in the vacuum of space, and flash precognition that allows her to randomly subconsciously anticipate the moves of her opponents. But all of this is somewhat secondary to what is arguably her main power, the ability to control, absorb, and manipulate energy of a whole bunch of different kinds. This extends to let her project her spirit, manipulate molecules, and transmute matter. She can create energy constructs and even boost up her already OP abilities. And at number 4 is the Hulk. It's almost a requirement that the Hulk show up on this list. The gamma-powered green Goliath has been around for a long time, and ever since he showed up, there are only a small handful of people who have ever been able to stop him without using some kind of magic or reality warping. His infinite strength has a lot to do with that. A strength that grows based on his anger and has never ever really reached a cap, allowing him to destroy entire planets, be a threat to entire galaxies, and being able to shake the multiverse with his punches. It also has a lot to do with his basically limitless dynamic durability, which has allowed him to survive attacks from enchanted weapons, powerful blasts of energy, stronger than ground zero nuclear explosions, the Human Torch's Nova Blast, and he could stand up to forces that could crush adamantium and destroy entire planets. But now, thanks to Immortal Hulk, we know that the Hulk actually literally cannot die, coming back from the below place through green doors. Actually, in that story we even get to see an alternate future where the One Below All uses the Hulk to destroy literally everything in existence. And the Hulk is still showing more and more of his potential, with the reveal of the Titan personality that was able to fire energy blasts and is utter nightmare fuel. And at number 3 is the Scarlet Witch. As a natural conduit of one of the most powerful forms of dark magic, chaos magic, the Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff, is one of the most terrifyingly powerful beings in Marvel Comics. Using her chaos magic, Wanda has the very powerful ability to alter reality, which she has used to create her own children, bring the Avengers to their knees and even completely end a few of them, and even rewrite all of reality to make mutants the dominant species for a while before wiping a ton of them out. When she was born, Wanda had a natural affinity for magic. Now this was boosted up by the gift or curse of chaos magic given to her by Chthon, the old god of chaos, which was then boosted up again by the experiments of the High Evolutionary at Wundagore Mountain, which gave her an even deeper connection to magic. She can channel energy from other dimensions and from entities like Chthon, Sidorak, and Morrigan, and is considered to be the nexus being of the universe. Most magic users could make this list, but few of them can do what the Scarlet Witch can do. And at number 2 is Thor. Thor, Odin's son, the Asgardian god of thunder, is one of the most powerful heroes on the Avengers roster. Whenever anyone talks about Avengers level threats, one of the key elements of that is whether Thor can handle the situation alone. In both the comics and the MCU, Thor and the Hulk are repeatedly given reasons to not be able to show up so that certain storylines can actually be compelling. Specifically, I'm talking about Civil War, where Thor had to deal with Ragnarok back home on Asgard, and that was all because if he was on Earth during Civil War, whoever had him on their side would automatically win. Being the son of Odin the Allfather and Gaia, an old god, Thor has all the incredible powers of the Asgardians, but boosted to a whole other level thanks to his mom. As the god of strength as well as thunder, he is one of the strongest Marvel characters, being able to either defeat or stalemate astronomically strong beings like the Midgard Serpent, the Hulk, the Silver Surfer, Gladiator, and Hercules. His stamina lets him basically fight forever, and he's next to completely invulnerable. Not to mention his weather and energy manipulation and the use of his hammer. Even when he isn't in the possession of his hammer though, and is just Thor Odin's son, he is still a force to be reckoned with, and, especially recently, he keeps getting more and more power boosts, like when he was Rune King Thor, or now that he's Allfather Thor, which gives him the Thor Force, and he's gone even beyond that when he became the Herald of Galactus. There's a lot more to Thor, but I think I've said enough. And finally, finally, in at number 1 is the Sentry. With the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns, Robert Reynolds, the Sentry, is not just another Marvel version of Superman. In my opinion, he is even cooler than Superman, and you can get at me in the comments for that. The Golden Sentry Serum gave Robert Reynolds more than just the highest level of strength in the universe, the ability to move and fly faster than the speed of light or just straight up teleport, and near invulnerability. The Sentry also has molecular manipulation abilities that have allowed him to defeat the Molecule Man, photokinesis which allows him to shine brighter than the sun, turn completely invisible, and produce blasts of light from his hands and eyes that could burn the Hulk's skin and level whole city blocks. He also has psionic abilities that he uses to hold himself together, implant his memories in others, erase memories, and stop the Hammer of Thor. He also has biokinesis abilities that have let him heal others, resurrect himself, reconstitute his molecules, and as the Void, give others cancer. Speaking of the Void, that is a whole other dark side to this hero that is intrinsically tied to his existence, which is not only incredibly powerful in its own right and makes the hero 10 times more interesting, but when the Sentry combined with the Void, this godlike being somehow got a huge power boost. Starting off our list at number 10 is Assassin Spider-Man. In What If Spider-Man vs. Wolverine number 1, we are introduced to Spider Assassin, a Spider-Man variant who is just a little bit more loose when it comes to the morals he follows. In his universe, with great power comes great responsibility and greater enemies, which led the Peter of Earth 8351 to leave New York City in order to protect his family from the villains who would make personal strikes. Instead, Peter joined up with Wolverine, and because of their time traveling and working together, he is much less opposed to sending criminals to the afterlife, meaning he does it on the regs. He's also almost always serious, not resorting to the usual quips and jokes that we are used to Peter using to cope with difficult or precarious situations anymore. His serious nature is also reflected in his costume, with a much darker look, especially with those black eyes. I really dig it. His web shooters have also been shown to shoot black webs in some panels, and they also include some more lethal means of dealing with his foes. He is an effective addition to the Spider Army when it was formed, and an extremely effective Spider-Man indeed. Number 9, the Spider. There are a lot of characters who go by the name of the Spider, including a pulp hero from way back in the day, but specifically, we are talking about a Peter Parker variant that's bonded with the Carnage symbiote coming from Earth 15. The Spider of Earth 15 is a much more sadistic, sociopathic, red-headed version of Peter Parker. He even claims that he has been sentenced to a total of, quote, 67 life sentences in prison for the crimes that he has committed. But of course, to make him just a bit more lovable, he has a sense of humor very much like that of Deadpool. It's great, if not a little unnerving. The Spider was introduced in Exiles number 12 and was a big part of the reality-saving Weapons X team featured in it. Being a sometimes leader of the team, as a Carnage-bonded sociopath, he was pretty powerful. But he was nonetheless sent to the afterlife by a blast from Firestar in Exiles number 44, because when you're dealing with the multiverse, there is bound to be someone stronger than you, no matter what you do and who you are. Number 8, Nightcrawler Spider-Man. Very recently, meaning this year, we have been introduced to the Sins of Sinister story arc, which is basically Mr. Sinister enacting a plan to take over the world and actually pretty much succeeding. There's a whole lot to this plan that kind of deserves its own point, but one part of his plan is using his cloning know-how to create chimeras. These essentially are spliced together versions of mutants and other heroes, so basically taking the already powerful mutant heroes and making them even more powerful by giving them a second power. There are some really cool mashups, but one of the spin-off comics from this event is X-Men Sins of Sinister Nightcrawlers. This comic features a team of spliced together Nightcrawlers who call themselves the Legion of the Night, and one of these splices puts the powers of Nightcrawler on a clone of Peter Parker. It's a blue-skinned man who can do whatever a spider can, but who can also bamf from place to place. And I never knew it was something I needed, but it definitely is. Nightcrawler never gets enough love in my eyes, and he's definitely one of the coolest of the X-Men. Unfortunately, I think Marvel knows how powerful this combo would really be, so they dispose of this chimera in a pretty lame way, but in my eyes, unstoppable. Number 7, Spiderpool. Okay, I'll be honest, we have like zero information on this alternate Spider-Man. During the Spider-Verse, we were introduced to so many versions of Spider-Man that to go through each and every one in detail would have left us with no actual Spider-Verse story, and that story is dope, so no. But good golly, I wish for this one character they would have. First spotted in issue 9 of The Amazing Spider-Man from 2014 in a tiny little panel is an alternate Spider-Man wielding a katana. We see him again from the back in issue 14, and then we finally see a frontal view of this Spider-Man in issue 15 when the suspicions are confirmed. There for all to see is a Spider-Man who is also dressed with elements of the character of Deadpool. Surviving the war with the Inheritors that took the life of so many alternate versions of Spider-Man, of course he would make it through. We can assume that this guy has all the Spider-Man powers, but if he's also Deadpool, then this version of Spider-Man also has that god-level healing factor, and based on the katanas, he is just as okay with being a complete psychopath. While we have no idea about this Spiderpool's name, story, powers, or personality, we can make enough guesses to know that this guy is incredibly capable and most likely unstoppable. Number 6. Takuya Yamashiro. Instead of being Peter Parker, the Japanese Spider-Man, Spider-Man, is Takuya Yamashiro, a motocross racer and son of astrophysicist Dr. Hiroshi Yamashiro. Unlike most versions of Spider-Man, Takuya was introduced through a live-action Japanese Spider-Man TV show, and with that, his character differs quite a bit. For starters, his spider powers are a little less powerful due to the budget constraints for the show, which is a hilarious reason, but don't you dare think that this makes this guy a pushover. To make up for his less powerful spider powers, Takuya has a massive kaiju fighting mech named Lepardon, Power Ranger style with arm rockets, an absolutely giant sword, and a boomerang. He uses Lepardon and his spider abilities to fight the Iron Cross Army, which is a group of suspiciously human-looking aliens from an unnamed world who are led by, wait for it, Professor Monster. Nice. Due to his popularity and just how awesome he is, Takuya Yamashiro has become an official character in the multiverse, coming from Earth 51778, fighting against the Inheritors alongside the Spider Army, and he is set to appear in the second animated Spider-Verse movie, which I am pumped to see. And at number 5 is Hulk Spider-Man. I don't have any problem constantly re-talking about this version of Spider-Man and the Hulk because it's freaking cool. Appearing in the Immortal Hulk with Great Power story, Peter Parker is granted the alter ego of the Hulk after Loki magically transfers the ability to him, taking it away from Bruce Banner. All the proportional spider powers mixed with the unstoppable force that is the green monstrosity of the Hulk. It's actually really cool. If not, a little silly to see the Hulk wearing a torn spider suit. And there are tons of hilarious moments in this story, like Spider-Hulk getting annoyed at the stupid sticky wall, which is just his wall crawling powers. Like, come on. Banner calls in the Fantastic Four with the hope of being able to fix the situation, and I personally wish they just left it so we could still have Spider-Hulk, but alas, the power of the Hulk is switched back to Banner with the help of the Fantastic Four and Banner's own genius. It's a short little story that seems almost self-contained, as if it is indeed an alternate universe story, but it's an insanely cool one, and a Spider-Hulk would be an incredibly powerful character if he were to show up again and learn how to overcome the rage thing. Number 4. Ghost Spider. Spider-Gwen, or as she has come to be known, Ghost Spider, is the Gwen Stacy from the alternate reality of Earth 65. In this reality, it is Gwen Stacy, not Peter Parker, who is bitten by a genetically engineered super spider. This bite granted her superhuman strength, speed, toughened flesh, and pretty much all the spider-based powers that the regular Spider-Man would possess. Plus, in my opinion, she has the best looking spider suit. After Gwen is depowered by Cindy Moon during her self-titled comic, Ghost Spider bonds with the Venom symbiote, and successfully too. Gwen has actually learned to find a very healthy balance with her symbiote. The symbiote itself enhances whatever emotions the host has, right? So, when she first bonded with Venom, thanks to a corrupt Matt Murdock, Kingpin, who she was forced to team up with, she was rage-fueled and looking for revenge against the Rhino for attacking her father, and eventually against Murdock himself. But over time, she realized that she needed to control that and give Venom better qualities to enhance in order to control and find balance with the symbiote. In a way, Venom actually helped Gwen to become a better hero. She is another fan favorite alternate spider hero, and as such has featured in tons of stories. But if you're looking for something to read where Ghost Spider is featured, I suggest Edge of Spider-Verse, where she first appeared, and her own self-titled comic series Spider-Gwen Volume 1 from 2015. Number 3. Spider-Ham. Hailing from a universe where all the Marvel characters are replaced with anthropomorphic cartoon character animal versions of themselves, Peter Parker, yes that is his real name, is Spider-Ham, a pig. Now Peter Parker was actually born a spider named Peter, and he lived in the basement lab of Mayday Parker, a scientist who had created, quote, the world's first atomic powered hairdryer. Using this atomic hairdryer, May accidentally irradiated herself, and in a weird fit of rage I guess, she bit Peter the Spider, which made him turn into an anthropomorphic pig, just like her, only with the relative powers of a spider. In his premiere issue, he would go on to do battle with Hulk Bunny, created when Bruce Bunny was trapped in an arcade cabinet and bombarded with gamma radiation, and I wish I was making that all up, but it really happened. Spider-Ham has most of the same abilities as 616 Spider-Man, only he has this rather unique ability called Spider Nonsense, which basically allows him to be more and more cartoony the more danger he is in, which is the perfect reason to have the wackiest nonsense happen that will save this piggy's hide in some of the most imaginative ways possible. Cartoon powers are incredibly powerful, bordering on reality warping, so this is a pretty unstoppable little piggy. Number 2. Miles Morales. Born to an African American father and a Puerto Rican mother, Miles Morales of the 1610 universe was bitten by the Oz-enhanced spider that caused him to pass out and foam at the mouth. When he awoke, he discovered he had powers. Cool! He would go on to become the next Spider-Man of the Ultimate Universe, and people love him. Miles Morales is an incredible character. He has almost all of the regular spider abilities, plus some amazing powers unique to himself. Namely, his venom, which is like a form of bioelectricity that he can emit from his body and use in some really cool ways, like punches and beams and blasts, as well as at long range using his webbing, and that ain't all. Miles is also able to use a spider camouflage to make his whole body, and even his clothes and costumes somehow, go invisible. And apparently, he is immortal, as a side effect of the Oz formula that contributed to his abilities. Also, similar to Ghost Spider Gwen Stacy, who Miles may have a bit of a romance with in this universe, Miles' suit is just dope as hell. And finally, in at number 1 is Mayday Parker. Earth X. It's a world where basically every single person has powers, things have gone apocalyptic, and where the daughter of Peter Parker, Mayday Parker, is Venom. While her retired and cynical pops ain't too thrilled about it, she does actually have complete control over the symbiote thanks to her advanced genetic and honed spider sense. She was eventually under the control of this kid going by the name of the Red Skull, and thanks to her father and other Earth X classic heroes, she was saved. This Spider-Woman / Venom hybrid and her father Spider-Man go on to join a super-powered police force and fight crime and supervillainy threats together. Nice. She eventually, after the death itself, gets recruited by Kang the Conqueror as part of a multiversal team to fight the Apocalypse Twins. In addition to her proportional spider powers plus the enhanced spider sense, she gains all the usual symbiote powers as well, plus a few extra, like what seems to be a rudimentary form of telepathy, and 'tis believed her symbiote could go on to mutate further to gain more powers, which is a good way for Marvel to say, we can do whatever we want with this. She's definitely one of the cooler incarnations of both Spider-Man and Venom to grace the pages of comics.